Super Mario Brothers 2. No, not that one. The other one. There we go. Yoshi's Island and the entire Yoshi series sucks fucking big gorilla cock. New Super Mario Brothers 2. Super Mario Brothers The Lost Levels. Super Mario 64. The original Super Mario Brothers. New Super Mario Brothers Wii. Yeah, that's right. I deadass ranked Super Mario Land above 64. What of it? New Super Mario Brothers U. Super Mario Land 2. 6 golden coins. It's my favorite forgotten Mario game. Alright gamers, we're about to get into the top 10, which are games I consider to be not only some of the best platformers out there, but some of my favorite video games of all time. So let's see what those games are.
What are you, a rat, a squirrel, some kind of Batman cat who thinks he's rad?
Super Mario 3D Land goes right up here with the aforementioned Poor Souls, as one of the more underappreciated and underrated games in the Mario lineage. I never hear anyone talk about this game or 3D World when they talk about 3D Mario. I guess if a game isn't sandboxy or a galaxy game, it isn't worth being discussed fondly, which, to quote my Luigi's Mansion video, is shallow and stupid. Just because 3D Land has a more generic art style and simplistic level design doesn't mean it's deserving of the shaft. These types of levels and puzzles were designed entirely around the 3DS, so of course they weren't going to be fucking open-ended like 64 or Sunshine. And I'm of the opinion that the galaxy games cannot work with standard controls. Like, playing these games with standard controls as opposed to motion controls feels wrong, and I fucking hate motion controls, so of course games like that won't work on the 3DS. That and the hardware of the 3DS wouldn't really be able to make something on par with Galaxy, or at least at the time of its launch, so a game like 3D Land makes sense. Personally, I feel like these kinds of stages work really well for this game, especially how they take full advantage of the 3DS's 3D to get a sense of depth for your jumps. Seriously, sometimes it's necessary to have your 3DS slider up in order to accurately judge where you're going to jump. Some people may think that as a negative, but I don't, because it actually takes advantage of the hardware of the system it's on in a really clever way. Plus, the levels in this game have a lot of gimmicks in them to keep the gameplay loop fresh and anything but repetitive, like the platforms that go by rhythm, the platforms that switch whenever you jump, the boo houses are always a treat, and how can we forget the iconic Zelda level? Despite that, however, I feel like I'm going to get a lot of flack for ranking this above 64, and honestly, I don't care. I will die on the hill that proclaims that 3D Land is better than 64, because at least 3D Land has Luigi. Oh shit, that's right! After you beat the main campaign, you get 8 special worlds, which means the game essentially doubles in length. Sure, they're all just remixed versions of the stages in the regular worlds, but I like it anyway. It's like new Super Luigi U, but I don't have to pay $30 extra for it, meaning it's better than the entirety of new Super Luigi U. Plus, 100% completion isn't anything nearly as egregious as Sunshine or 3D World. Like, I know, critically, you can tear 3D Land to shreds. It's basic, pitifully easy, and not memorable at all. But to me, it's all about the little things. The sound design, the music, fun new enemy designs, stage gimmicks, hell, even the geometry makes 3D Land one of my comfort games. Like new Super Mario Bros. U, I really do feel guilty ranking this game so high, but I love this game so much and I will never apologize for it.
The new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
I know I just had a whole spiel about feeling guilty about where I place some games, but I don't feel guilty about where I put this game on the list, because new Super Mario Bros. Is fucking awesome. It truly was and still is such a novel idea to implement Mario's movesets from the 3D games into a 2D one, and it truly works fucking wonders. The triple jump, the ground pound, the wall jump works wonders with the game's tight level design and creative enemy and boss fights. That's right, I said bosses. Are you as sick of the Koopa as I am? Well, play this game and it'll be like a fucking breath of fresh air to you, because I don't even know how to describe half of these bitches. Like, World 2's boss is some kind of fucking foreskin looking ass worm, and World 3's boss is some goofy fish. So there's some wild variety in terms of boss design. Now keep in mind, I said the designs are fun. I never said the fights were good. Like, I'd say the Bowser Jr. fights are definitely among the worst sub-bosses in gaming history. It actually makes me angry how fucking horrible and lazy they are. And while on the topic of bosses, this game marks the first ever appearance of Dry Bowser, which is pretty neat. Also, I want to talk about the power-ups for a second, or power-up I should say, because the mini mushroom sucks and the mega mushroom is shallow. Sure, whatever. But damn it, I want to stick up for the blue shell here, because I am sick and tired of people saying it controls bad. Bitch, no it doesn't. You're just stupid and have no idea what the hell you're doing. Literally all you have to do is time your jump right, I control how hard you press the button for how high you jump. Literally that simple. And if you crouch, it protects you from enemies and projectiles. How can you not like the blue shell? I will defend it until the day I die. Actually, the most underrated power-up in the franchise. The magic carrot and the red star are certainly more underappreciated, but the blue shell is certainly the most overhated. And of course, how can we forget the mini games? Sure, most of them are ripped right from Mario 64 DS, but who fucking cares? They're fun mini games, and I'd rather have them here than nothing at all, because how can I be lonely and depressed when I have Luigi here to keep me company? There's the multiplayer mode, which I'm kinda mixed on. On one hand, I appreciate the creativity when creating this mode, where it's a competition between Mario and Luigi to see who would get the most stars. It can get really hectic and honest to god really exciting and fun as hell. But on the other, I was disappointed that I can't go through the campaign with a buddy. I mean, I understand why, but it's still a shame. Like, disregarding how unoriginal and derivative its sequels are, this game is fucking amazing. Out of all the games on this list, this one is my most replayed, and I don't think that's based purely on nostalgia. I have a lot of nostalgia for Yoshi's Island DS, and to this day I have never beaten that shit. But yeah, New Super Mario Bros. Is really good, and you should definitely revisit it.
Garfield, you fat cat. You are so big and fat. Why are you so fat?
Super Mario 3D World is an incredible ass game with a fucking banging ass soundtrack. Legit, the band they got to do the soundtrack went so fucking hard that it's mind fucking. Like, goddamn, this has to be one of the best OSTs in the whole goddamn franchise. It is masterful. The game itself is good too. This game is basically Mario USA but good. All 5 of the characters are insanely fun to use in their own special ways in spite of their shortcomings. Like, I still prefer to play as Mario, but I still acknowledge that the other characters are great as well. Like, anytime I would play a Ghost House stage, I'd probably pick Luigi. But you know what really does this game for me? How fucking creative and gorgeous the stages are. Like, this game has the best lighting effects in any Mario game. So many of the shots are colorful, gorgeously lit, and packed to the brim with detail. Oh god, this game is so fucking pretty. But the stages themselves are awesome. Sure, I don't really remember any of the names of them off the top of my head, apart from like Super Bell Hill or Mount Beanpole. But I remember what a lot of them were like. Like 3D Land, all the stages have super inventive and creative ideas that take advantage of the hardware of the system it's on, but it's ramped up to 11. Like the platforms where you gotta blow into the mic is kinda stinky, but it's a cute kinda stinky. I know people dog on the game for not having memorable levels, and I feel like they only say that because the art direction is generic. But looking at the stages themselves, they fucking rule. What are you talking about? Hand-on Hall, Footlight Lane, Red Hot Run, the Great Goal Pole, Double Cherry Pass, any of the levels with Plessy in it, just to name a few. I may have had to look up the names for all these levels, but they're amazing nonetheless. Like Footlight Lane, for example. It's a very treacherous stage because you never know if you're going to walk off to your death or not because the path is invisible, but you never feel too tense because of how serene the music and atmosphere is. I haven't even touched on the incredible power-ups yet. The cat suit is awesome. Your moveset is even more versatile with you being able to climb up walls and pounce on your enemies, making platforming way more interesting and crazy fun. The double cherry is jank, but it's a fun kind of jank. It's hell to control all these Marios at once, but the chaos is pretty endearing. The clear pipes are superfluous and doesn't add anything substantial at all, but I'd rather have them be here than the standard green warp pipes and have to wait 10 seconds for the scenic transition to play out. Though the reason the devs decided to add the clear pipes to the game was pretty funny.
I've always wondered, what's Mario up to while he's in there?
And I know everyone talks about this, but of course I have to dedicate some time to the epicness that is Meowser. It's Cat Bowser. If that's not epic, I don't know what is. Like, there's so much I can praise to death about this game that I can honestly make an entire video on 3D World in of itself because of how great it is. But rest assured that 3D World is a spectacular video game and one any self-respecting Mario fan should try out.
By the far reaches of the galaxy,
Super Mario Galaxy 2 was a lot like Lost Levels in the sense that because of its derivativeness to the original, I don't really have much to say about it since most of my praises coincide with Galaxy 1. That being said though, I do have more to say about Galaxy 2 than I do Lost Levels, as this game has, well, little more to it. For starters, Yoshi. I'm not too much of a fan of the point and click nature of the eating mechanic, but the game makes up for that in other ways, like the power-ups made specifically for Yoshi. The power-ups for Yoshi work really similarly to the baby Yoshis in New Super Mario Bros. U, in the sense that the abilities are kinda insignificant and somewhat shallow, but still charming. Plus, the Galaxy 2 does some things worse than the original, like the story. One of the things I adored about the original was how serious the tone was that gave the game the epic feeling it had. Galaxy 2, by comparison, doesn't have that. Like, the opening cutscene is a complete joke. Bowser's dialogue is on the same level of goofiness as the CDI games, which has its own appeal, don't get me wrong, but it's still a bit underwhelming. Plus, the game's structure and level design is a lot more linear, which I'm also kinda mixed on. Plus, the spring mushroom is still trash, but I swear to God, this fucking game is a masterpiece. Even with all these minor flaws, which I cannot stress enough are minor, this is still a Galaxy game. The game is still packed to the brim with endless amounts of creativity and whimsy, where I have no problem saying that this and Galaxy 1 has the greatest level design and stage designs in any video game. Plus, even though the spring mushroom sucks ass, Galaxy 2 makes up for it with this, the Cloud Flower, one of the greatest power-ups in the whole franchise, with you being able to make your own platforms out of clouds. Dude, I love Cloud Mario so much, and I would love to see it return in a future game. Definitely in my top 5 favorite power-ups. In short, even though I consider this game to be inferior to the original, I wouldn't call it a bad game by any means. Chances are that if you love Galaxy 1, you will certainly love Galaxy 2 as well, and vice versa. I remember last year when people on Twitter were saying that Super Mario Odyssey is a lot worse than people remember, and I feel like the reasons for saying that are dumb. Oh, Odyssey feels more bloated because of all the moves feel disconnected, and there are too many there for me to care. Like, that's kind of the idea for there to be so many moons. The whole point to there being so many moons is for the player to get moons that best correlate for their playstyle. Like, spoilers for later, but my biggest problem with Sunshine is that the game requires you to collect every fucking shine sprite in all 8 of the stages in order for you to get to Redacted Mountain. It sucks so much, especially with how tedious some of the missions are. Odyssey isn't like that. Some of the moons require you doing platforming challenges, some require you to go out of your way to explore the area you're in, others require you to take advantage of a specific capture ability, others are incredibly tedious minigames. Regardless, the way to get the moons are incredibly varied, fun, and makes each playthrough of this game different from the last, which is something I can't really say about any other 3D Mario except maybe 64 in the Galaxy games. And this game isn't perfect, don't get the wrong idea. A lot of the kingdoms are either underwhelming or fucking painfully unutilized. Like the Cloud Moon and especially the Ruined Kingdom are spectacular concepts to have in the game, and it sucks dick how small and little things there are to do in these places. Plus, there are some Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon levels of pace breaking, with the Odyssey getting fucked up halfway through the game and you have to search for moons to fix it, which isn't great. Plus, considering the game's narrative hinges on the wedding of Bowser and Peach, Bowser Jr. getting the shaft is really fucking disappointing. But despite all of that, Super Mario Odyssey is a fantastic video game. For every step backwards this game takes, it takes like fucking 3 steps forward. All the different ways to collect moons are amazing. Mario's moveset is the most varied and nimble and parkour based that has ever been in the whole franchise, and goddamn, it fucks hard. The different captures Mario can be are fucking awesome. You can be a Bullet Bill, a tank, Bowser himself, and a motherfucking T-Rex. This is the moment humanity was building towards. This is our peak as a species. And then there's Odyssey's most iconic feature, the costumes. Odyssey's Mario model is the only one in the franchise to have nipples, and we as a society just have to live with that fact. I usually hate forced nostalgia pandering, but even I can't help but revel in the fact that you can dress up and look like N64 Mario. And the bosses, holy sweet mother, the bosses. I've been pretty mean towards Mario bosses in this video, but Odyssey has some of the best bosses in the entire fucking franchise. It's so refreshing to have bosses in a Mario game with actual mechanics and patterns and not just dodge projectiles and jump on their head like 3 times. Though this game has its fair share of those suckish fights too, and keep in mind that none of them are difficult in the slightest, but goddamn are they something special. Like, would you ever expect a boss like this in a fucking Mario game? Plus, the Bowser fights are some of the most thematically intense and mechanically deep in any Mario game since like Galaxy. Basically, you can criticize a fair amount of stuff Odyssey does, but you can't sit there and tell me there isn't a lot to love and appreciate about it.
I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
Remember when I was talking about Lost Levels, and I said that I didn't think it was the hardest Mario game? Yeah, Super Mario Bros. 3. I remember when I was a kid, the airship stages used to whoop my ass. But that's probably because I was a dumbass kid who didn't know how to play video games. Yeah, I finally got Super Mario Bros. 3 the day it launched on the Wii U eShop. Was it worth the wait and suffering through Mario USA? Well, if it's this high on the list, what do you think? If I could define Mario 3 in one word, it would be classic. Playing this game so closely to all the other ones, and it's shocking how much of an impact it truly had on the franchise as a whole. It was the first game with the Koopalings, airship levels, a Super Leaf, this asshole, and most importantly, the world map. People give the new Super Mario Bros. U map a ton of credit for simply being interconnected with each world seamlessly, but honestly, I don't think they give the Mario 3 map enough credit. The layout is cool, each world has an incredibly detailed and pretty design, especially for its time. It's packed to the brim with mini games, one where you have to match 3 items in a row, one where you have to match carts together, toad houses where you get items, and these really gay Hammer Bro interjections. And the map isn't perfect, don't get me wrong. The fact that you can't go back to other worlds and replay levels is immensely disappointing, but there's still loads of value to the game outside of the levels. As for the levels themselves, hot damn are they good as hell. As previously mentioned, Mario 3 is, in my opinion, the most difficult Mario game to date. The airship levels have that trademark NES bullshit where cannons and bullet bills are flying in all directions, but unlike most games from the NES era, while the difficulty stems from many of the obstacles being in cheap placements, it all seems fair since they're considerably easy to avoid, or at least to me considering how many times I've played this shit over the years. But if you're playing this game now, be expected to die a few times. And now for the power-ups. Personally, I was never too much of a fan of Raccoon or Tanuki Mario. Having to build up momentum in order to fly is a quality and concept, and can be satisfying enough to pull off, but I don't think the level design complements the power-up's ability too much with how condensed it all is. Though Tanuki Mario has a slight advantage over Raccoon Mario for me, with the stone ability, which was robbed from us in 3D Land kinda sorta. But you already know about those power-ups well enough. What about the power-ups that never returned? Do you hate water levels as much as I do? Do you wish they could be controlled bearably? Well, now they can with the frog suit. The frog suit is incredible. It makes water levels actually fun, and you gain a higher jump, which is always a treat. Though if you want to be technical, the frog suit did kind of come back in spirit with the ability to capture a frog in Odyssey. Though you want to know which power-up isn't so lucky? The Hammer Bro suit. Hammer Bros fucking sucks, and it feels so damn good to hit those bastards back with the same hammers they throw at you. Sure, it's just another variant of the Fire Flower, but it's a really good variant. In 3D Land though, we get the introduction of the Boomerang suit. I hate the Boomerang suit. But do you know what the greatest thing about this game is? The fact that it is canonically a play. I think I got my point across now. Super Mario Bros. 3 truly is a fine wine because it hasn't aged a single bit in the 35 years since its release, and if anything, has gotten even better with time.
Ah, the sea. So mysterious, so beautiful, so wet.
Man, this one hurts. I would love nothing more than to rank this game number 1 because I adore every single thing about it, but I can't realistically rank it number 1 because of how significant its one and only flaw is. Regardless, I love Super Mario Sunshine. You know, I can at least understand why some people may not like Lost Levels. The game can be cheap at times, and there are some elements that don't hold up the best. I don't think that justifies vitriolically hating the game to the extent that Mario fans do, but I can at least understand why the game itself might not be everyone's cup of tea. I don't, for the life of me, understand why Mario fans hate Sunshine. Well, to be fair, Sunshine is probably the boldest Mario game to date, as it deviates from the typical Mario design philosophy more than any of the games on this list. But that's what's so unique about it. It's so experimental with its gameplay, setting, and even world building additions, and I can't help but adore it all. Like, for example, the story. The story is one of the best in the whole series. Sure, it involves the tired old trope of Peach dumbass getting nabbed, but there's some added plot and lore to keep it interesting and adding emotional depth, like the debut of one of the greatest video game characters of all time, Shadow Mario. Dude, I love Bowser Jr. so much. Even though he's a little bastard that tried to get Mario arrested, his motivation for doing what he does is just so heartbreaking yet wholesome. I can't bring myself to hate him at all because of how pure of a character he is, and I'd argue he has more of a presence in the game than Bowser himself does. Plus, Nintendo, Bro, give him the magic brush back. Come on. Flood is amazing in this game as well, and is definitely my favorite companion in any 3D Mario game. I was never too fond of Cappy as a character, and Baby Luma certainly exists. The way Flood controls and enhances combat and platforming is absolutely phenomenal. The game doesn't have Odyssey levels of parkour, but Mario's moveset in the game is still nothing to scoff at. It's still very versatile, and the various nozzles for Flood greatly enhances the parkour and platforming elements. Sure, not all the nozzles are winners, like I can live without the rocket nozzle, but I wouldn't call any of them bad by any means. The only real complaint that I have, apart from the one that I mentioned back in the Odyssey segment, is that I wish the game had somewhat of a lock-on feature, kinda like the Souls games. Like last year, I got pretty big into Elden Ring and had no fucking idea how much I wanted a lock-on feature to my games until I had it. Aiming isn't the best here, in my opinion, because I can never get a proper sense of depth no matter what angle the camera is on, so I feel like the addition of a lock-on feature would greatly help in that regard. But despite that tiny little flaw, Flood is absolutely magnificent and adds tons of value, depth, and strategy to an already fantastic game. Now as for the setting, holy sweet mother of god, the setting. I fucking love Isle Delfino so goddamn much. I don't want to go super in detail about this because I actually plan to make a long as hell review slash love letter to this game one day. That's honestly why I'm so happy to finally have this ranking done, because I can finally make that video on Sunshine. But yeah, Isle Delfino is great. It's such a beautiful, charming, and warm environment that automatically puts me in a happy mood. Sometimes I turn this game on just to roam around and jump around the main hub because of how fucking marvelous the atmosphere is. Hell, it's been scientifically proven that simply playing only 20 minutes of this game increase pro-social behavior in people, while Crash Twinsanity increase anti-social behavior in people. And yes, this is real. I mean, to be fair, I'd hate Society 2 if I were forced to play any post-warped Crash games, except Boom Bang. That one's a certified hood classic. And of course, like all good Mario games do, Yoshi makes a playable appearance, and you can make him vomit the fruit you fed him in order to get him to hatch. I swear to god, it's not as fucked up as it sounds. Even the music has subtle changes to it when you play as Yoshi. Come on, man, why do people dislike this game so much? It's clear so much love was poured into this one, and one of these days I will make a gigantic love letter to it in form of a long ass review and analysis on it. But until then, Sunshine remains in my heart as not only one of the greatest Mario games ever made, but one of the greatest games I've ever played.
I think you mean Wonderland!
Okay, so for context of this next segment, I know I sort of explained this in part 1, but I still feel like it's worth reiterating for this segment. I wrote about like 99.9% of this script in like February or March of 2023, long before Mario Wonder was announced, let alone released. And I didn't feel like rewriting and re-recording this entire fucking 20+ page script to accommodate for it. Hell, I didn't even feel like writing a segment for this game in particular, because making this ranking was a lot harder than you think. So instead, I'm going to be reading the review of this game I wrote on Backlogged when I initially finished it back in October. Enjoy! Sonic Superstars left such a bitter taste in my mouth. It was such a miserable experience, and it was such a fucking god-awful time. I didn't even finish it because of the terrible way it made me feel. Once I did not think a single video game could make me feel whole again. Then this came out. First off, this goes without saying, this is the most gorgeous the Mario universe has ever looked in a video game. The art direction is so spontaneously beautiful. Its usage of the pastel colors gave this game a very storybooky vibe to it that I adored. Plus, the character models had this really quite squishy, almost toy-like look to them that makes this game stick out the most visually out of every other Mario game. But that's just the game on a superficial level. What about how it plays? If it wasn't for Galaxy, I would say this has the best level design out of any game in the franchise, both 2D and 3D. The level design, while admittedly standard for what you'd expect from a Mario game, has a lot of stage gimmicks that are kind of reliant on enemies, which is one of the few legitimate criticisms I have of the game. Goes off the fucking chain when you get the Wonder Flowers. This game is not afraid to throw you for a loop with its change in gameplay and setting, and I adore that so much. In one stage, you may be floating through the sky, taking the form of jelly, running on walls, and even being in a goddamn music video, just to name a few. Plus, unlike 3D World, the different characters all play the same, so the level design doesn't have to compensate for it, which I deeply appreciate. I can gush about this game and what makes it a masterpiece for hours. I love how this game is basically a giant love letter to fans without it coming off as obnoxious. For once in a piece of media, I got a sense of joy and love for seeing references to other Mario games because they don't come off as cynical. They come off as a loving tribute to the entire series. Like, was anyone expecting the Cosmic clones to make an appearance? What can I say, man? This game is immaculate. I'm not sure if it's it's in my top 3 favorite Mario games, but it's certainly in my top 5. Easy 9.5 out of 10. If you're a Switch owner, this is a game you need. Whenever someone asks me what I think peak 2D Mario is, Super Mario World is the game I go to immediately. Sure, it doesn't have the fluidity and better overall movement of new Super Mario Bros. DS, but it more than makes up for it in literally everything else. This marks the first ever appearance of Yoshi, and sure, he doesn't have the flutter jump that was introduced in Yoshi's Island, or the imagery of Mario with a gun, but he's still great. His weight is perfect, and he has some pretty interesting mechanics unique to Mario World. Like, if you eat a certain Koopa and press B, he either spits fire or fucking flies. And despite coming out in 1990, it still looks absolutely gorgeous today. The colors are vibrant and saturated. The colors really pop in this game just as much as Sunshine does. It's so fucking beautiful. The backgrounds also make the environments pop ever so much, especially with how detailed they are. And that's only one of the pluses to the levels. So many of them are such a blast to go through because of how many fun gimmicks they introduce, how many secrets there are to find, and how bumping the music. Oh shit, that's right, yeah, the music. The music in Super Mario World is the definition of a bop, and certainly unique compared to all the other Mario OSTs throughout the years. Like, the soundtracks of the new Super Mario Bros. Games blend in with each other in an incredibly underwhelming way. Mario World isn't like that. It definitely has its own unique bump. I can't accurately describe what makes the music in Mario World click for me and so many people, but it just makes me want to dance every time I listen to it. Now, as for the power-ups, you know you got the mainstay, Super Mushroom, Fire Flower, etc. But we have one new power-up in the game, the Caped Feather. The Caped Feather is awesome. It's basically the Super Leaf, but all my problems are fixed. It doesn't take nearly as much momentum to take off, and the level design complements it more than Mario 3 does to Super Leaf. Flying is a lot better to control, and you get this badass dive attack where Mario throws all of his fat ass weight on those unfortunate enough to be in his path. But even the Caped Feather pales in comparison to the objectively best power-up in video game history, the P-Balloon. Did you ever think Mario could get any fatter than he already is? Well, in this game he can, and it has no right being as fucking sexy as it is. The P-Balloon alone makes Mario World a 10 out of 10 experience. What can I say? Super Mario World just has it all. Fantastic level design, tons of secrets, extra levels galore, great power-ups, perfect physics, Yoshi, and the fucking P-Balloon. How can you not say this is peak 2D Mario? Super Mario World is not just a spectacular video game, not just a kick-ass Mario game, but perfectly stands the test of time and exists in my mind as one of the best platformers ever made. Literally, what do you want me to say? Super Mario Galaxy is not only one of the greatest video games ever made, but it's my second video game of all time, surpassed by that one game where you throw fucking turnips at bugs. I would love to make a video or a long ass segment in this video about Galaxy, but literally what the fuck can I possibly say about this genuine triumph that hasn't already been said? Nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. So instead of saying what everyone and their mother have said about this game that you already know about, I'm just going to go into my personal experience with Galaxy, because at the end of the day, this is my video and I can do whatever the hell I feel like. If you want an actual review of Galaxy, there's like a bajillion of them on YouTube that you can freely look up. I genuinely feel like there's nothing more I can add that isn't already common knowledge, but I'm getting off track here. It's Christmas 2009 and my mom gets my dad a copy of Mario Galaxy because we had this obscure console that came out during that time that may or may not have been a phenomenon, but who the hell cares about that? At the time, I was familiar with Mario, but not too knowledgeable of the franchise. Like I said in my Dark Moon review, I would have watched my dad and sister play Luigi's Mansion or Super Mario Sunshine on her GameCube, and would occasionally play Mario 6 and 7 with her. And earlier that year, I contracted new Super Mario Bros. DS for my DSi, but all in all, I was still a newbie to the Mario series. And need I remind you, this was the late 2000s, so I was a dumb kid who actually thought becoming an astronaut was a viable, obtainable goal. Yes, that's why my old room was decked out with space stuff, for anyone who knows me that might be watching. But once again, I'm getting off track. So in my mind, my dad just got this brand new spanking video game that not only was a part of a series I was getting more and more into, but was also in a setting I was incredibly hyper fixated on at the time. Well, now I gotta see what it's about, and Seeing and playing this game for myself changed my life. I know that sounds melodramatic, like a game starring this goofy ass looking dude with type 2 diabetes in space changed your life? Yes it did. I instantly fell in love with and adored every single aspect of this game. So many of the game's galaxies stuck with me so many years later and have impacted me as a person and inspired me to use my own creativity in a profession I'm passionate about, simply because of how beautifully creative and full of whimsy the galaxies are. I can name so many of the galaxies at the top of my head because of how memorable they all are. Gusty Garden, Battle Rock, Space Junk, Honey Hive, Beach Bug, and Toy Time Galaxy, just to name a few. Hell, even for galaxies I absolutely despise, like Sling Pod or Loop-de-Loop Galaxy, I can admit they are incredibly well designed and creative. And the music, again, if anyone who's watching this knows me, knows my favorite genre of music is classical. Yeah, I'm that kind of guy. And this game is mostly to blame for that. The Galaxy soundtrack is my favorite soundtrack in any piece of media ever. It is absolutely magnificent. There are people that I know who don't give a shit about orchestrated music, yet love the Galaxy's music as much as I do. In fact, everyone who's watching this, leave this video right now and listen to the Galaxy soundtrack. I promise you, you won't regret it. And that's only scratching the surface of every single thing this game gets right. If I were to go into specific details from everything from how amazing and satisfying the controls are, how expertly the motion controls were integrated, and how I don't think this game would work with button controls, or how spectacular the bosses are, or how both stories of this game are great, both tonally and thematically, we would be here for hours. Bottom line is that Super Mario Galaxy is a legitimate masterpiece, and I don't use that term lightly. When I say a piece of media is unironically a masterpiece, I mean it. When I say Breaking Bad is a masterpiece, I mean it. When I say Mob Psycho was a masterpiece, I mean it. And when I say Super Mario Galaxy is a masterpiece, I mean it. I love, adore, and appreciate this game to death, and I will never get tired of replaying and revisiting it. Super Mario Galaxy is more than just a video game. Super Mario Galaxy is an experience, a wonderful, ethereal experience that every self-respecting video game lover should play at least once. But even Mario Galaxy pales in comparison to the true best Mario game, and that of course is Super Mario Run.